Look at this beautiful, well-loved quilt. I had a customer who wanted me to do an upcycle. She said she didn't care what I turned it into as long as that she could use it for generations to come. Well, I just couldn't bear not turning it back into a beautiful, brand new quilt with the same material that she once loved before. After examining the quilt, the old pieces were carefully taken apart, stitch by stitch, to ensure that we didn't make any more holes in it that was already there. My friend Dottie, she really worked hard on taking it apart, and I appreciate her efforts. So this is what we had left, and look at that beauty. Just those pieces. Can you imagine the history? If it could talk, what it would say? It's my understanding that it was a quilt made by her grandmother and has been passed down through the generations. And I think she said around 1980 was when it was given to her. So next I wanted to cut my squares, and the largest that I could get them was 4 3/4 inch square. And I had several colors here, the blues, the yellows, the creams, the flowers, and pink. With the back of the quilt being that white with the little pink flowers, I decided that each of my quilt blocks would start with that as the center. And I decided on the sawtooth star pattern. I thought I would start with the finished block here for a frame of reference for you. So each of these blocks, I need 4 3-inch squares of color, 4 3-inch squares of white, 4 2.5 squares of white, and 1 4 3/4 square of the center block. I didn't think to record me making this pink star, so I thought I would go ahead and show you how I made the next block. I chose 4 of the big print and 4 whites. Notice my white is really white on here. I decided that the white that was left over from the fabric of the old quilt just wasn't up to par. It was too thin and too faded and yellowy. So I decided not to use it, and I brought in some of my own white fabric as an offset of the star. So I have 4 print and 4 white. On each white square, I drew a diagonal line from corner to corner with a pencil. I then laid my white square on top of my printed fabric, right sides together. Using my 1/4 inch foot that has the guide there that you can see on the pencil line, I sewed a stitch line down on the right side and on the left side of the pencil line. So it's a 1/4 inch away from the pencil line on each side. After you're done sewing, your stitch lines should look like this. The next step is to take your rotary blade and a ruler. Notice I don't have a ruler here, but I couldn't hold the ruler and the blade and the camera at the same time. And you cut down the center, right down on that pencil line. You will end up with 8 triangles, and now it's time to press them open. I usually press my seams open. That's just my preferred way. So now you have 8 2.5 inch squares, and our next task is to make sure that they are actually 2.5 inch. So I made my own pattern here, and I drew a diagonal line on it with a permanent marker, and I used that as my guide, and I laid the permanent marker over top of the seam, and then I trimmed the block. Next, you take 2 of your blocks and you put them on the table like this, and then put them right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch seam down the side, and then press. You should end up with 4 legs of your star. Next, I grabbed my center square, which measures 4 3/4 inches, and I just double checked here on the mat to make sure it did. If not, this is the time to make sure you square it up properly. Take one of your star legs and place it right sides together at the top of your block and stitch 1/4 inch. Do the same to the opposite side of the block, pressing all of your seams open. Next, take the 4 remaining squares, the white squares, and add them to the ends of your 2 remaining star legs. Then press them open like this. Now it's time to sew those sides to your main block. Make sure that you're matching up your seams. Now it's time to press those seams open, and the front of your star should look like this, but please make sure that you square your block up. Now it's time to add your star to your design wall and progressively put all of your blocks. I ended up with 20 of them. You can see the progression here. Next, I added 2.5 inch sashing between each block, and by the time you sew it, it sews down to a 2 inch sashing. Next, I found some fabric at Hobby Lobby that matched the pink and the quilt top just perfectly, so I added a 1.5 inch border around the quilt top. I wanted my quilt a little bit wider, so I added a 2.5 inch border of white around the pink. Now you're ready to make your quilt sandwich with a backing, batting, and your quilt top. And I have a long arm, so I went ahead and put mine on a long arm machine, but you can do it on a domestic sewing machine, free motion, or on your embroidery machine with a stippling design. I have a Unique 16X Elite long arm, and I quilted it on a Grace Q-Zone Queen rolling frame. And didn't it turn out beautiful? You'll see the back here. I went to Ollie's and got a sheet. It's a flannel sheet, and it matched beautifully, and it was so soft. And I used 80/20 Hobbs batting in the center. I hope you enjoyed this upcycling project as much as I did. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.